On February 21st, 1978, a crew of electrical workers in downtown Mexico City were digging a trench to lay cables 2 meters below the surface when their equipment struck something massive in the earth. It was a stone disc carved from a single block of volcanic rock, over 3 meters in diameter, weighing more than 8 tons. Its surface was covered in intricate relief sculpture depicting the dismembered body of a woman. Her limbs were severed, her head was detached, her torso was splayed open. The workers stopped immediately. Within hours, archaeologists arrived and identified the figure. It was Coyolxauhqui, the Aztec moon goddess, sister of Huitzilopochtli, the god of war. According to Aztec mythology, Huitzilopochtli killed and dismembered his sister on a sacred mountain called Coatepec after she attempted to murder their mother. The stone had been carved more than 500 years earlier and placed at the base of the most important building in the Aztec world, the Templo Mayor, the great double pyramid that stood at the ceremonial heart of Tenochtitlan. The electrical workers, digging a routine trench on an ordinary city block, had struck the foundation of an empire. If you are new here, this channel explores the hidden worlds buried beneath the surface. Subscribe if you want to see more. That moment in 1978 triggered the largest urban archaeological excavation in the history of the Americas. 13 buildings were demolished to make room. Over 7,000 artifacts were pulled from the ground. And for the first time, the people of Mexico City were forced to confront a reality that had been easy to ignore for 5 centuries. Their city was not built beside the Aztec capital. It was built directly on top of it. Tenochtitlan was founded in 1325 on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, a large shallow body of water in the Valley of Mexico. According to Aztec tradition, the site was chosen when their people saw an eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a snake on a small, swampy island. That image is now on the Mexican flag. What they built there became one of the largest and most sophisticated cities in the world. At its peak in the early 16th century, Tenochtitlan had a population estimated between 200,000 and 300,000 people, larger than any city in Europe at the time, except Constantinople. The city was laid out on a grid, connected to the mainland by 3 massive causeways. Aqueducts brought fresh water from the mountains. A network of canals served as streets. Gardens floated on artificial islands called chinampas. At the center stood the sacred precinct, a walled compound containing 45 public buildings, including temples, ball courts, skull racks, and the towering Templo Mayor itself, which rose 60 meters above the plaza. When the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés and his men first saw the city from a mountain pass in 1519, they were stunned. One of his soldiers later wrote that they could not believe what they were seeing and said, "It was like the enchantments described in stories because of the great towers and buildings rising from the water." 2 years later, Cortés destroyed it. The siege of Tenochtitlan lasted over 2 months. When it ended on August 13th, 1521, the city was in ruins. The Spanish, joined by thousands of indigenous warriors from peoples who had been subjugated by the Aztecs, dismantled the Templo Mayor stone by stone. The pyramids were toppled, the temples were demolished, the sacred sculptures were smashed or buried. And on the rubble of the Aztec capital, Cortes ordered the construction of a new city, the capital of New Spain. The Spanish used the stones of the Templo Mayor to build the metropolitan cathedral. They used the foundations of Aztec palaces as the base for colonial government buildings. They drained the lake, filled the canals, and paved over the ruins. Within a generation, Tenochtitlan had been erased from the visible surface of the earth. Mexico City grew on top of it, layer upon layer, century after century, until the Aztec capital was buried so deeply that most residents had no idea it was still there. But it was there, all of it. The foundations, the platforms, the carved stones, the offerings, the bones, buried but not destroyed. And in 1978, when a shovel hit a stone disc 2 meters below a Mexico City sidewalk, it all came rushing back to the surface. The excavation that followed the discovery of the Coyolxauhqui stone was led by archaeologist Eduardo Matos Moctezuma. Between 1978 and 1982, his team uncovered the remains of 7 successive construction phases of the Templo Mayor, each one built over the last like a series of nested shells. They found sacrificial offerings of jade, obsidian, gold, turquoise, coral, and shark teeth from the Caribbean. They found the skulls of sacrificed humans. They found clay effigies of the rain god Tlaloc. They found ceramic urns from Veracruz, copper rattles, and skeletons of jaguars, eagles, and crocodiles. Every layer told a different chapter of the Aztec story. Each successive ruler had expanded the temple, using the bulk of the previous structure as a platform for the next. The result was a pyramid within a pyramid within a pyramid, a compressed timeline of an empire's growth and ambition, all sitting 2 blocks from the Zocalo, the central square of modern Mexico City. But the Templo Mayor was only the beginning. Since 1978, archaeologists have found approximately 40,000 artifacts across dozens of excavation sites scattered throughout the historic center. Every road repair, sewer upgrade, and building foundation in the area has the potential to hit something. When city workers repave a street, archaeologists stand by to retrieve ceramic fragments, bones, and artifacts that appear from under the asphalt. Excavation sites are often so close to modern infrastructure that archaeologists have to be careful not to undermine building foundations. They regularly contend with a tangled network of sewers, pipes, subway lines, and electrical cables. There is a site inside a subway station. There are sites under the floor of the Metropolitan Cathedral. There are active excavations in the rubble left by the 1985 earthquake. The ancient city is not concentrated in one location. It is everywhere, spread across the same footprint it occupied 500 years ago, directly beneath the modern one. And the modern city is sinking into it. Mexico City was built on the bed of a drained lake. The soil beneath it is not solid ground. It is a layer of soft, water-saturated clay that is 100 meters thick. The compressed sediment of Lake Texcoco, the same lake the Aztecs built their island capital in the middle of. When the Spanish drained the lake and began pumping groundwater to supply the growing colonial city, the clay started to compact. The water that had held the fine mineral grains apart was removed, and the grains began repacking themselves more tightly, like a sponge slowly being squeezed dry. The city has sunk. over 9 meters since the process began. In some neighborhoods, the rate of subsidence reaches 50 centimeters per year. That is not a statistic you can ignore. It is visible. The streets are uneven. The sidewalks buckle and crack. Buildings lean at angles that look structurally impossible. The Palacio de Bellas Artes, one of the city's most iconic cultural buildings, has sunk so far that its original ground floor is now a subterranean basement. The Metropolitan Cathedral, built from the stones of the Templo Mayor, is one of the worst affected structures. Inside, a pendulum hangs from the ceiling, tracking how far the building has shifted. The worst affected section has dropped 2.5 meters. The cathedral is leaning, its columns tilting, its floors sloping at angles perceptible to anyone who walks through it. The sinking is not uniform. Because the ancient lakebed varies in thickness and composition, different parts of the city are compacting at different rates. The result is a landscape of differential subsidence, where one building drops faster than its neighbor, cracking the pavement between them. Underground sewers and water pipes fracture. Drainage systems that once relied on gravity now require pumps because the pipes have sunk below the level of the canals they were designed to feed into. The city's metro lines flex and deform as the ground beneath them shifts unevenly. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Geophysical Research concluded that much of this subsidence is irreversible. The compaction of the ancient lakebed will continue for at least another 150 years, regardless of whether groundwater extraction stops. The damage already done to the clay structure cannot be undone. The city is not just sinking, it is sinking permanently. And as it sinks, the Aztec layer pushes closer. Every centimeter of subsidence compresses the gap between the modern city and the ancient one. Archaeological features that were once deeply buried are moving upward relative to the surface. Construction that once cleared the Aztec layer now risks hitting it. The sinking is making the ancient city more accessible and more vulnerable at the same time. The archaeologist who led the Templo Mayor excavation described the sacred precinct as the center of the Aztec universe, the place where they made contact with the divine world and with the underworld. For 500 years, that center has been sealed beneath the Spanish city that replaced it. Now, as the ground compresses and the surface drops, the two cities are converging. The modern capital is slowly collapsing into the ancient one. Beneath the leaning cathedral, the cracking sidewalks, and the bumpy airport runway, the foundations of Tenochtitlan are still there. The platforms of the Templo Mayor, the floors of palaces, the offerings of jade and gold and bone, a city that once held 300,000 people, built on a lake, destroyed by an empire, buried under another city, and now being revealed, piece by piece, every time someone in Mexico City puts a shovel in the ground. The eagle is still on the flag, the serpent is still in its mouth, and the city it was found on is still underneath. Thanks for watching. If this is the kind of exploration you want to follow, subscribe. There is more to come.